interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Mile run, and then this morning I went for a 1.27 mile run, so just a little bit more every day, just getting out there. Nothing to brag about at all. It's very, very slow. I'm still about 10 minutes per mile, but I'm still doing it, so if I can do it, you can do it too. You have something? Okay, hang on.
Every day this week I've done, I can't even think. Okay, I drum on a big thing, and we move our arms and legs and run and all of that. And I've done chair yoga and intense chair exercise when you only sit to cool down. The rest of the time you're up. There's no chair there.
That's great. Getting up and moving around, that's good. Yep. Or on the chair, still. Okay. Well, good deal. Don't worry. You don't have to stop this week. You can keep doing it. If you didn't do it this week, that's all right. Start in the morning, start Sunday morning, and get to it. I want to read a verse this evening, and it is found in Ecclesiastes 2, verses 24 through 26. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also, I saw, is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to the one who pleases God. This also is vanity and striving after wind. What are you chasing after? What are you chasing after in your pursuit each week? Are you chasing after more stuff, more things? Are you chasing after a better use of your time, a better use of your finances, an investment in your community? What is it that you're pursuing? Why is it that you do what you do? We explored that a little bit last week, and this evening and tomorrow we're going to be exploring a little bit more what we do with our resources, money, time, and talents. And so I want to challenge you to consider what it is that God is touching your heart with over the next couple days, for you to invest, for you to spend more wisely, or for you to save. And we'll be able to go on that journey together and come back next Friday night after having done this, ready to share something. All right? We had a few people share. Brave. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. And next week we're gonna have more, I think. This evening our speaker is Jake Wilkinson. We met back in undergrad at Walla Walla University. We were in a class, and I didn't recognize him when I saw him outside of that context. We went to a Casting Crowns, they're a Christian band. We went to Casting Crowns concert, and he was waving at me outside, and I was like, this guy is crazy. Which he you make your own judgment call on that, but I didn't have anything to base it on. But then I realized, oh no, he knows me, and I should know him. Anyway, we were in a class together. We had been in the class for a couple weeks, and I wasn't very attentive, so I'm trying to do that a little bit better. Over the years, though, at Walla Walla, we were involved in a couple of adventures / pranks on some professors. One involved moving a car without permission and parking it on a lawn at the university. I wouldn't advise that, but it was something that we've grown from and through together. So when I asked Jake when I was going to introduce him, I said, is anything off limits? He said, so that's why I felt like I could share that story. I asked him also, what's something you want us to know about your journey with Jesus? And he said that I'm human, and it's been a roller coaster. Can anybody here relate with that? Probably all of us. Then I asked him, what are a couple things that fuel your passion for serving Jesus and his people? And he said, watching someone discover who God really is, myself included. And kids, sometimes I think it's the best thing in the world that I get to teach them about Jesus. but I often realize that they know more about him than I do. Jake has been pastoring in Washington State for a couple of years. He's studying at Andrews Seminary, and he finishes there in December of this year. So we're going to miss him, but we're also really glad that we have him here with us now. And I want to invite Jake to come forward, and I'll have an opening prayer, if that's all right. And then we'll go ahead and get started. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you that you look at us and you see yourself in us. You don't see the mess that is in us and dwell on that, but you see what you created us to be. You don't give up on us, and I just pray that you would give us eyes to see others the way you see us. The grace you've extended to each of us in here, I pray that you would empower and give us the strength to really extend that to others. As we are learning this evening and tomorrow evening about wisdom, I pray that we would find that in you, not in just the tested and tried ways of this earth, but that we would find our wisdom and our source of wisdom to be in you. We love you, and we thank you for the gifts that you give us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Blake. This weekend, we're going to talk about resource management. And tonight, I'm going to be talking about finances, which when that first came up, I thought that's kind of a joke that I should be talking about that because I struggle so much in that area. So I just want you to know that these things have impacted me significantly even this week. And I'm on the journey as well, and my wife as well. I'm not a financial... The things Billy said about being a health professional last week, just apply it to this whole weekend as well. We're not professionals in any way in this. But I want to start with something. I want you to take out your money holder or your wallet or whatever it is that holds your money. Take it out. Smiles already. I hold it in front of you. I want to see it. Like, everybody hold it, right? Take a long look at it. Now I want you to hand it to somebody else at the table who is not a family member. I'm participating. How do you feel? Good? Now we're going to take up a free will offering for the donation of our choice as the life project. I'm kidding. Okay, just an exercise to get us started here. Thank you. There wasn't anything in there anyway you wanted, so. How much easier is it to give away someone else's money than our own? A little easier? A lot easier? In fact, it's pretty fun. Now, I don't want to talk today about what we should be doing very much about with our money, but I want to talk about maybe a different way about thinking about our money. So, I'm going to share with you a couple things that I found. Does anybody want to take a guess out there at what our nation's credit card debt as a whole, what our credit card debt equals? Numbers, I need numbers. 16 trillion, no, not quite. That's a bold guess. 10 billion? More. 50 billion, 100 billion, more. 500 billion, more. $1 trillion, that's that many zeros. I think 12. I tried to put the 1 there, but then I realized, wow, I'm only giving us partial credit there. This is I got it off of Forbes magazine, and they know a thing or two about money, and they like to give those things out. $1 trillion is our national credit card debt. Now, that may not sound that bad to some people, right? But there's about 330 million people that live in the U.S., a little bit less. And I don't know the math of that, but Forbes did the math for us per household. If we want to take a guess how much per household we owe in credit card debt, per household. Very close. There is 16,883 per household. That is our credit card debt per household, if we take that average and distribute it. That's a lot to me. And keep in mind that some people don't have any debt, and so this can be astronomically more. This is not counting student debt. This is just credit card debt. That's it. Student debt is 1.5 trillion. I don't want to talk about that. A little too close to home. The thing about this is this is actually getting worse. This is from 2 years ago. This is from 2017. Okay, 2019, it's far worse. Actually, in fact, I was sitting in an airport. I can't remember if it was Chicago or Seattle. It's irrelevant. But I remember watching the TV, and it was a little bit before Christmas time, and it said to invest in places like Target, invest in places like Lowe's and retail stores, because the trend is people are continuing to spend more and more and more at these places for more stuff, more things. This number has gone up in the last 2 years, significantly. How do we get like that? Now, from the same article, I took a quote, and her name is Jody Cook, and it says, "A huge reason for overspending is consumerism, social media, and the pressure to keep up with the Joneses. Because the encouragement to spend is all around us, the need to consume outstrips the need to keep spending under control. We're compelled by short-term desires." We talked about that last weekend, and when those get out of control, right? We're compelled by short-term desires, and debt, it provides the perfect recourse. And then she says this: "Spending beyond our limits, living beyond our means, is not only socially accepted, but it has now become the norm in the society that we live in." There's a perfect a meme that a friend sent me earlier this week. Thank you. And if you can't read it, it says, "Me 5 minutes after ordering something from Amazon." Isn't that right? We just wait, and we can't wait. Amazon is amazing, and they've got this marketing thing down beautifully. And in fact, they make a boatload, not just off of their own product, but they have their own credit card, right? And it's like 5% back on everything you spend. Does anybody just use that and like not overspend? They're banking on this thing, right? They're banking on you spending astronomically more than that 5%, and it stays on there, and you don't pay it off, and then you have to pay them all the money that you paid for their product in the first place. It's genius. It's so easy, too. Now we have it's not even like long delivery times. It's free 2-day delivery. Now free 1-day delivery. They're working on getting drones to get this stuff to our houses when we want it right now. I love Amazon. But then we get stuck with this huge credit card debt for stuff that we don't really own, right? We don't really own it. It owns us because we have to go to work to pay off the credit card, to pay off the house that's too expensive, to pay off the car that we don't actually own. And we end up having to go to work, and that's forced labor, isn't it? You know what that's called? It's called slavery. You know what slavery is? It's bad. Newsflash. We live in an enslaved culture today, and we don't even know it until it's too late, until we've already spent that money, until we're already down that road. And I saw a post from a girl I grew up with when I was just a little kid, and she said, "I'm just trying to make it through my 30s through the financial mess that I made in my 20s. And this is the world that we live in. This is the nation that we live in, especially. I think we need to be honest about ourselves when I'm going to take it out. One of them, my credit card. When we be honest about this thing and we call it a credit card, what part about this has any credit? This is not a credit card, this is a debt card, and we should name it so. Its name is actually a lie. You're building your credit, sure, but what are you doing? You're going into debt by using it. And we live in a world succumb to this idea. Now, I want to define money a little bit. So, what is money? Well, it's not really cash anymore, right? We don't really, not many of us use that. Someone gave me cash the other day, and I thought for a second, what is this? Because we actually we have a digital world for using currency, right? It is out there, it's invisible numbers that somebody else controls. And we have some of it, and it's nice. But this is the currency definition from Webster's dictionary. It says circulation is a medium of exchange. So in other words, if I were to take my shirt or my watch off and give it to Jonathan here, and he gives me money, that is the circulation, right? You see it goes around. We've exchanged something. This has currency. In fact, when I go to another country, this has far more currency than the cash we have in our pockets because it has some value. That's all currency is something that has value. Now, I want to share a story from the Bible. And last week, Billy talked about it just briefly, and I want to look at a couple different angles from it. And I know we know this story, but I think it's had a profound effect on me when I saw it in a little bit of a different angle. And it is the story of the rich young ruler. Now, I have three points I'd like to make. The first one is this. The first one is what we have has been given to us. Something we generally think as Christians, but the outside world is like, what are you talking about given to us? Now let me explain this for a second. When I was in Fiji, I was privileged enough to go when I was 17 years old. My dad took me there, and I remember there was a young man by the name of Saru, and I felt like I was best friends with this guy for like a week. And I said, can I go to your house? And he goes, my house? And I said, yeah, your house. Now, it's pretty warm in Fiji, really beautiful. That's nice. He brought me to, it was smaller than this stage. It was literally 3 pieces of sheet metal as his walls and one over the top of his roof. He had no bed. It was just kind of stuff he had stacked up underneath and something to lay on there. And that was his bed. He had a sheet that he pulled over him. But then he had something very significant hanging on the wall. He had snorkel gear hanging on the wall. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. You go snorkeling. He goes, no, I rent it out. He goes, this is my other job. I work here, but this is like my side job so I can make more money, so I can get out of here. And I was like, why would you want to leave here first? But this man's goal was to leave the place that he was born. Okay? This man's goal was to get out. Now, I would like to make the statement that we have a massive inheritance. Everything that we have has been given to us, whether you believe in God or not. I think everything we have a fortunate life here in America, don't we? Here's something I'd like to say on that. The average world income is $8,000 to $9,000 per year. In America, it is $35,000. That 8 to 9,000, by the way, less than a quarter of the countries of the world actually have that privilege to even make that much. And in fact, in Cuba, when I was there, this was fascinating to me. When I was in Cuba, we went on a little trip down the road, and there was a house for sale on the beach. It had a beautiful farm attached to it, and I was like, oh man, how awesome would it be to buy this? Now, Americans aren't allowed to buy the Cuban households there. We're not allowed to own it. And I did the math. I saw it was for sale, and I did the math. You know how much it would cost? $2,000. Isn't that amazing? I want to move to Cuba. There's 330 million people in the United States of America. That is 4.27% of the actual population. The fact that you might be a middle-class citizen in the United States, you are in like the top of the top percentage in fortune, just by being born here. Now I want to look at this. And Luke 18:18 says this. This is the only thing we need to look at for the first point. And a ruler asked him, what's significant about this? A ruler is somebody in that time who has inherited everything that they've gotten, whether it's their position or their money or whatever it is, they've inherited it. They got it, okay? That is the first point, is that, excuse me, is that we have inherited, similar to the ruler, we've inherited a large fortune. We're very fortunate to be born here. Now, the second point is this one. I think we need to be honest with ourselves. And this is what I mean by this. Okay, there is, if you're feeling hopeless now, just wait. So it gets better. I promise. Nah, that wasn't sarcasm. So I think we need to be honest with ourselves. And there was a thing, I'm reading a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. The man is not a Christian, but he's a cognitive psychologist. He did a fascinating study where they took coffee and they said, okay, this is a donation coffee. You know what a donation coffee is? So in other words, like, you can come drink coffee, you don't really have to pay anything, but they do it, it costs money from somewhere, and they're asking for a donation. And what they did was very simple, is they had the coffee machine there, and they had the coffee, and they put the picture of a flower behind it. And so people would come, and they'd give a little money. Some people would, some people wouldn't, and that's just how they would. They did that for about a week, I think, and then they switched the picture to a set of cartoon eyes. A set of cartoon eyes. Do you know how much the giving went up? Over 3 times the amount of people gave to the coffee donation than when there was a flower. Just because there was this, they didn't even recognize it as real, obviously, but this thing is watching, or something's watching, right? Now, as Christians, we know that God sees everything, and we're not going to go down that road, but the road I do want to go down, the road I do want to go down is one thing, is that your money is none of my business, but it is your business. And the way we get into the massive credit card debt that we have in this nation is by not paying attention. We don't actually look at what we're doing. Now, I want to look at Luke 18 through 21. It says, and the ruler asked him, we just talked about that. He says, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said to him, why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments. Do not commit adultery. I think this is key right here. You know, he's already implying that this man knows what he's talking about, right? You know the commandments. Do not commit adultery. Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Honor your father and mother. And he said, all these things I have kept from my youth. There we go. That is what the answer that tells us everything we need to know about this man. What has he done? Has he kept the law? In his own eyes, yes. You know what Jesus' response is? Well, let's just actually, before we go there, let's take a second. What are the missing commandments? He's only named 5 of them. And there's 10, right? What are the missing commandments? The first 4, and which one? And covetousness, okay? So he's missing 5 commandments. Now, I had a teacher at Walla Walla with Blake. We had a teacher together. He says, and Jonathan, actually many of you went to Walla Walla, so I will take that back. His name is Alden Thompson, and he had this kick, and he would drill it into us that the commandments are based on 2 things, right? What is it? Love of God and the love of people, right? So he's missing the first 4, which is the love of God. We have the 1 commandment, love. Love God, love people. You have the 2, you have the 10 commandments, and then you have the many. And he's essentially saying, Jesus is essentially saying, look, I know you see the things on the outside that you haven't done, because these are easy for him to say, right? Did I sleep with anybody else? No. Did I steal? No. Did I honor my parents? You go ask them. Of course I did. All these things are easy from the outside, but what is Jesus getting at? He's getting at the heart, right? And that's why he doesn't name the other commandments. The missing commandments, as we see there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and number 10. Now, I think there's a title of a book that I love. I can't remember anything in the book, but I do remember the title, and it's amazing. It's called Who are you when no one's looking? And that title of that book has stuck with me for a very long time because it is like, really, who am I? That's the premise of the book. Who are you is not who you pretend to be in front of everybody else. It's who you are when no one's looking. And I think that's the heart of what Jesus is trying to get at with this young man. The man has already told himself, look, I'm okay. I've kept all the commandments. And Jesus is saying, no, you're not okay. This is not okay, the way you're living your life. You're lying to yourself, and you aren't who you think you are. Now, another book I completely loved was After You Believe, Why Christian Character Matters by a man named N.T. Wright. And he writes this. This is actually probably one of my favorite quotes of all time. He says, "It is one thing to insist on walking south when the compass is pointing north, but to fix the compass so that it tells you the wrong way is the right way is far, far worse. You can correct a mistake, but once you tell yourself it wasn't a mistake, there is no way back." We cannot lie to ourselves. Like, this is the premise of this middle portion. We need to be absolutely honest with ourselves and look deep within our heart. In fact, another teacher, I'm realizing how many Walla Walla students are here right now. I'm sorry to all of you. Okay, we have another teacher at Walla Walla. His name is Dave Thomas, and it looks like he hasn't slept in like 6 years, and I swear he's reading books because he's just a genius. And he said something to our senior class, and I remember it, and he looked straight at us, and he says, there are few places, evidently he's Sean Connery, all right. There are few places you'll look that are more scary than in your own heart. And that has stuck with me to this day. And it's terrifying to actually realize when we've gone down this trail and we've lied to ourselves and we've gone so far down this way, it's terrifying to actually look into our own hearts and see, like, I'm not who I'm pretending to be. That's a scary place to look. But what it is one I truly believe that is necessary for this story and for each one of us today. We need to take an honest account of where we spend our money, because I think Jesus said something to the effect, and I think he meant it, where our treasure is, our heart will be also. Where we spend our money gives us a good indicator where our heart is in line. How are we doing? We're almost out of time. We're getting there. Now, the third point is this. We need to get or give help and realize what is most important in life. I think that is where we'll find freedom. Let's take a step back, and we take a step back to a ruler asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone." So if we take a step back to this, we realize that this question is a bad question. We realize it as Christians, right? It's, at least in the way he's asking it. You with me? Say yes. Thank you. That's all I needed. What must I do to inherit eternal life? Because it's not possible, right? It's not possible for this man to obtain it on his own account. And this is what he's asking, because he's looking like on the outside stuff. What can I do on the outside to inherit eternal life? And so Jesus' response, because Jesus is a genius, and I love him, this is his response to that. He says, Jesus heard this. He said unto him, "One thing you still lack, sell all that you have and distribute to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Come and follow me." It said, the text says he turns away because he's very sad. And then people start questioning, well, if he can't be saved, then who can be saved? And Jesus' final response to that, I love this final response. What is impossible with man is possible with God. There's supposed to be a D on there. What is impossible with man is possible with God. There's an alternate ending to the story that we see, right? What's the alternate ending? The hope that this man has is that he turns around, he says, "You're right." And he turns around and he goes home and he takes all of his possessions and he sells it to the poor. That's the alternate ending we're hoping for, right? And that's not really where the text leaves it. It kind of leaves it as like he turned around because he's sad, and we don't really hear anything else about him. That's the alternate ending we usually think of, but I actually don't think that is a possibility, and I don't think that's an ending at all for this story. And I think we come to that conclusion by this verse here. He says, what is impossible with man is possible with God. Jesus, being who he is, knowing the heart of the rich young ruler, he answers the impossible question that the rich young ruler has with an impossible demand. He knows. He knows this young man doesn't have the ability to go do. He knows that this thing has consumed his heart. It's holding it so tightly, and he can't go do what Jesus is asking him to do. So I think there is one alternative ending to this story. And I think it is the young man falling at the feet of Jesus and saying, I'm broken. I can't do it. I'm out of control, and this thing has consumed me. And I don't know how that story ends. I don't know if Jesus picks him up and they go to their house with the disciples and they go all sell the things together. But I think that is the only other alternative other than turning around because he's sad. I think the only other alternative is to actually get help. He needs two things. He needs a change of heart, and he needs to ask for outside help, something outside of him. As Christians, we know to go to God, but we also need to do this as a Christian church and together, to have people do this together with. There's another meme that a friend sent me this week, and I think it illustrates this perfectly. The therapist says, and what do we say when we're sad? Me, add to cart. Therapist, no. Again, we have some accountability here to say, hey, look, like we're on this journey together, and I think that's what we need to realize is that we are here together. Right, honey? Right, okay. This man ultimately is in need of freedom, and Jesus is offering that with his demand. He says, I want to set you free. I did not make you to be like this, consumed by your things. I did not make you to be like this. I made you to be free. Now, a couple weeks ago, Seth Bushy shared with us about habits and about getting back to being who we want to be and doing the things that we want to do. And I started something up again that I started back in the spring. I had a teacher that inspired me more than anybody else to read and interpret my Bible and to translate it. And I started doing that, and I got about 3 verses in, and then I didn't pick it up again for a few months. And so I was like, perfect timing, we can do this. I'm not very good at it, but I like making the connections. It's a lot of fun to me. And so I started doing that a couple weeks ago when I heard this is the habit thing we're on, and I think I made it about 8 verses further. And my goal is to translate the entire Bible. I know it sounds big, but if you translate 4 verses a day, you will finish in 21 years. That was not supposed to be funny. That was a serious thing, okay? I am dead serious. I want to do this. And if it takes my whole life, it takes my whole life. But I think it would be amazing. And it's about the journey, not just the destination, right? Okay. I did not think you were going to laugh at me like that. I found something in the first week I got back to this, and it was significant, and it was found in Genesis chapter 1. And I was like, that's interesting. So when God made land, how did he do it? What did he do? He spoke. Sure, yeah, okay, thank you. That's a great answer. He did do that. But what else did he, what was the physical act that happened? Okay, the water separated. Okay, we're not making quite the connection I was hoping for. Okay, in Exodus 22, it says, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. We were just talking about the 10 Commandments, right? This is just after the Exodus from Egypt. He sent them out of slavery, and what does he do to them to set them free? He separates the water as if to say, look, I did not make you for slavery. I didn't make you originally like this. I made you to be free. And I will do whatever it takes to do that over again and to make that a reality, not just in heaven, but here, right now. I think this is a goal of God's. I think God thinks about money significantly different than we do. In fact, most of the time when he's talking about money, he's actually talking about how much it consumes us. Most of the time when we talk about money, we talk about how much it consumes us, I guess, but in a different way. Now, since we're in this time period, we have a lot of kings that come into power and a lot of things that happen. And it tends to be that a throne, someone's throne, one of the king's throne, was made out of something of very rich material, right? Like we see this one's gold, or it would be just enormous, as if to say what power I have. And I think that's an important link that we need to make, is often power and money go together, and especially in the with reference to leadership or rulership here. And so these kings would make these gigantic thrones that they would sit on, as if people coming up would see how much they're worth, to see how much they really are. And I was interesting, and I was thinking, and it clicked. About 2 weeks ago, we had a Sabbath school that went over Ephesians 1, and it talked about God's treasure. And I was like, what in the world? And then it made this link. This is a throne that we tend to think of, and we could even see maybe God sitting on it. I don't know how we view that. But I love this picture. And this is from Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. He says, "Come boldly to the throne of grace and receive mercy." God's throne is not made out of gold. It is not made out of wood. It's not made out of any expensive material that we see today. It is something that this world is starving for more than anything, and it is mercy, and it is grace, and that is God's currency. We tend to think of money or currency in terms of what we can buy, sell, or trade, and God thinks of it in these terms. And I love this picture in particular, if you can see it over there, is that you can't really see God's throne. It's kind of a mystery. And that's because I think it is something very mysterious to this world as well. It is something very foreign to this world. Actual love, mercy, and true judgment is something we need more than anything, and this world is dying for. Dave Ramsey makes a point, a couple points. So I said I'm not a financial advisor. If you need financial help, go get it, and that's a great place to start, is Financial University with Dave Ramsey. I'm not employed by them or paid by them to say it, but he's great. But he makes a point that if we have a closed fist with our money, meaning we have our money and we refuse to let go of it, we cannot also receive money. Like, it can't come in and it can't go out, right? He also makes the point that we need to get out of debt. We have to get out of whatever it is that's consuming us in order to give to people that need it. Like, that's the whole purpose of this point, right? And I think when we do that, when that is our goal with our finances, with our money, when we get enough money to finally start helping people, there is something called a currency transaction that happens. When our money starts to look like God's money. When we start using our money in ways to help others, even though they don't deserve it, even though they got themselves into debt or wherever, when we see a heart that's willing to change and we use our money or our resources, whatever it is, to help somebody in that situation, I think we are working now with God's money, not just ours. The 3 points we made, just as a recap, is what we have has been given to us or inherited on some level. Be honest with ourselves and evaluate and get and give help, because I think essentially these are the same things. Because when something consumes us, whether we're on one side or the other, whether we're in debt or whether we have too much, and if we're consumed by finances, this is going to end up the same thing, and we will want to be free of it. That is the end. We do have a few questions that we'll now do. Should I pray now? Okay. All right. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, Lord, you have made us to be free, not to be held captive, and this goes to all aspects of life. And I just ask for life today. I ask for freedom that, Lord, we don't have to be enslaved by anything, especially our money, especially something that we think we want, but Lord, it really just enslaves us. Show us reality, show us who you are, and show us how to use what you've given us wisely. We love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for checking out the Life Project. We hope that you enjoyed the presentation tonight. If you're interested in asking a question about how you can implement some of the things that we've learned about, go ahead and drop us a message on Facebook, or you can also keep in touch with us by subscribing to our newsletter, and we can also email and have conversations that way right here on our website at the bottom of the screen. You can also watch more content, either on this video on my left shoulder or this one on my right shoulder. If you do subscribe to our channel, you'll be kept up to date when we do our next presentations. You can follow our schedule there on Facebook and our website as well. But we once again thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.